They don't live in Singapore. They survive there. Every morning before sunrise, thousands of workers cross a border that looks small on a map and massive in real life. Singapore on one side, Malaysia on the other. One country pays the salary. The other absorbs the damage. Singapore gets the labour. Malaysia gets the family breakdown. Call it cross-border commuting, if you want to sound polite. The real name is wage arbitrage with human collateral. Singapore offers higher nominal pay. Not wealth, not security. Just numbers on a payslip that look impressive until rent, taxes, CPF contributions and inflation chew through them like termites. After that, there's barely enough left to justify staying. So they don't. They rent a windowless room in Singapore, sometimes shared, sometimes illegal. Their spouse, children and aging parents stay in Malaysia, where housing is cheaper, food is still affordable, and life hasn't been fully converted into a spreadsheet yet. This isn't migration. It's financial outsourcing of family life. From an investment perspective, it's brutally efficient. Singapore imports labour without importing dependents. No school costs, no healthcare burden, no social integration expenses, just productivity, taxes, consumption, repeat. Malaysia exports workers but keeps the social costs. Childcare, elder care, emotional labour, broken marriages, lonely kids, stressed parents pretending WhatsApp calls replace presence. This is what capital optimization looks like when you strip away the PR slides. And the real joke? Many of these workers earn what looks like a high salary by Southeast Asian standards. On paper, they are middle class. In reality, they are cash flow positive but asset negative. No Singapore property, no meaningful equity, no time to invest, no leverage. They are paid just enough to keep crossing the border, but never enough to stop. Singapore's real estate market thanks them. Prices stay high because demand is global and supply is gated. Locals complain. Foreign capital keeps buying. Workers keep renting. The loop is perfect. Stocks rise, REITs thrive, banks smile, families wait. This is not a lifestyle choice. It's a financial trap disguised as opportunity. A system where GDP looks fantastic, but household formation quietly collapses across borders. Singapore loves numbers, GDP, per capita income, average salary charts that make finance bros nod like trained seals. What it doesn't advertise is how many of those salaries are financially decorative. On paper, these cross-border workers are doing well. 5 figures a month in SGD looks heroic when converted to ringgit. Families back home think the problem is solved. Relatives stop worrying. Governments point and say, see, opportunity. Then reality shows up with a calculator. Rent eats first. Not a mortgage, because that would imply ownership. Just rent. A monthly donation to someone else's balance sheet. After that come transport costs, food inflation, mandatory savings schemes, taxes, and the quiet tax nobody mentions. Time loss. When your life is split across 2 countries, you don't invest. You delay. You postpone. You keep cash liquid because emergencies are always one border away. No long-term planning, no compounding, no risk appetite. From a wealth perspective, these workers are frozen in amber. They can't buy Singapore property because prices are priced for global capital, not labour. Even a modest condo demands leverage levels that would make a risk committee sweat. Banks are happy to lend, of course. Debt is patriotic. But one job loss, one policy change, one visa hiccup, and the math collapses. So they don't buy. They also don't meaningfully invest in Malaysian property because their income isn't stable there. Currency risk eats returns, distance kills management. And deep down, everyone knows the plan was temporary. Temporary becomes permanent shockingly fast. Stocks? In theory, yes. In practice, no. After living costs, remittances, and just-in-case savings, there's rarely surplus capital. The money moves, but it doesn't grow. Singapore's markets still win. Banks collect fees, REITs collect rent. Blue chips rise on institutional money. The worker participates only as a consumer, never as a real stakeholder. This is the illusion: high income without wealth accumulation, cash flow without balance sheet strength. Capital loves this model. Labour hates it, but keeps showing up because the alternative looks worse. Malaysia loses domestic investment. Singapore gains consumption without responsibility. And the worker sits in the middle, earning more than before and building nothing. This is not success. It's financial stasis with better lighting. Every financial structure has winners. This one just hides them behind polite words like efficiency and regional integration. Let's name them. First, banks. Cross-border workers are ideal customers. Predictable income, constant transfers, FX conversion fees every month. Mortgage dreams they can't quite reach but keep asking about anyway. Savings accounts that look responsible but earn less than inflation. Banks love customers who never accumulate enough power to negotiate. Second, real estate owners. Not buyers. Owners, landlords, REIT managers. Developers who build luxury micro-units and call it innovation. Cross-border workers don't demand parks, schools, or long-term community. They just need a place to sleep near an MRT line. That's rental yield heaven. High turnover, low resistance, infinite demand. Third, the state. Singapore collects income taxes and consumption taxes without paying for the worker's children, spouse, or parents. No long-term healthcare liability. No education costs. No pension pressure. The most efficient labour import system ever designed. Malaysia, meanwhile, keeps the social costs, the emotional labour, the unpaid care work, the consequences when marriages crack under distance and exhaustion. GDP accounting doesn't measure that, so it's conveniently ignored. Fourth, corporations. They get globally competitive labour without globally competitive wages. Workers compare salaries to Malaysia, not to asset prices in Singapore. That psychological trick alone saves companies millions. Everyone wins, except the person on the bus at dawn. This worker is neither rich enough to invest aggressively, nor poor enough to qualify for sympathy. They live in the dead zone of modern capitalism. Functional, replaceable, invisible. They produce value in Singapore. They consume stability in Malaysia. They accumulate nothing anywhere. And here's the cruel part. The longer this continues, the harder it is to exit. Kids grow up, parents age, commitments stack, risk tolerance drops. What started as a few years becomes a decade. Capital compounds, people stall. Every economic model has an unpriced input. In this one, it's the family. When one parent works in Singapore and the rest of the household stays in Malaysia, the distance isn't just geographic. It's emotional, developmental, and cumulative. Video calls replace presence. Money replaces time. Remittances become apologies. Children grow up with a parent on a screen. Discipline gets outsourced. Emotional bonding gets postponed. The working parent becomes a voice, not a figure. By the time they realize something is wrong, the damage is already baked in. Marriages don't fail loudly here. They erode quietly. Exhaustion replaces intimacy. Resentment builds on both sides. One partner feels abandoned. The other feels used. Neither has the energy to explain, and the system counts none of this as a cost. From a financial perspective, this arrangement is brilliant. Families absorb the shock so companies don't have to. Spouses provide unpaid emotional labour. Grandparents provide free childcare. Communities patch the holes left by cross-border labour extraction. This is why the model scales. If families were built like infrastructure, this system would collapse instantly. Instead, governments celebrate remittance numbers. Economists call it regional labour mobility. Corporations frame it as opportunity. Meanwhile, households run chronic deficits in attention, stability, and care. The real subsidy isn't tax breaks or land deals, it's relationships stretched past their design limits, and when families eventually break, the blame lands on individuals. Not policy, not capital flows, not housing prices. Just poor work-life balance, as if balance were an individual failure rather than a structural impossibility. This system doesn't explode, it exhausts. There's no dramatic collapse, no viral headline about cross-border families finally snapping. What happens instead is slower and far more useful to capital. People age out. The worker hits their late 40s or 50s. Energy drops. Health issues appear. Employers quietly prefer someone younger, cheaper, more flexible. Visas get harder, contracts stop renewing. Suddenly the income stream that held two countries together weakens. And here's the punchline. There is no asset base to fall back on, no Singapore property, no serious equity portfolio, no business built, no pension worth mentioning. Years of high nominal income evaporate into rent receipts, remittance transfers, and consumption taxes. The balance sheet tells the truth no one wanted to read. Families reunite eventually. Not because the plan worked, but because the body gave up. The return isn't triumphant, it's tired. Children are grown or distant. Spouses are polite strangers. Parents are older than expected. From a macro view, Singapore moves on effortlessly. Another worker replaces the old one. REITs roll over leases. Banks keep collecting. GDP stays beautiful. Malaysia absorbs the aftermath. Underemployed returnees, aging households with weak savings, social systems stretched thin. None of this shows up in the original success stories. This is the real life cycle of the model. Front-loaded income, back-loaded regret. The cruel efficiency is that everyone involved can tell themselves it was rational. The worker earned more. The company stayed competitive. The state optimized resources. The family understood. But rational doesn't mean sustainable. If a system requires people to split their lives across borders just to survive, it's not a growth strategy, it's a liquidity trick. Final conclusion. They work in Singapore, their families live in Malaysia, their future lives nowhere. That's the full 5 chapters. No more pretending this is opportunity instead of extraction.